What's good, everyone? Welcome back to the Bearcat Den. It's Michael.
And Victoria back again with your weekly sports podcast covering NBA, NFL, MLB, and any other sports leagues.
Let's jump right in.
So as we know, last week the Knicks have gained the second seed in the East, and they have to play one of the play-in tournament teams, and it was between the Sixers and the Heat. And as of last night, the 76ers ended up beating the Miami Heat 105-104. So that means the Heat are going to play the Chicago Bulls, and the 76ers move up to play the Knicks. So those games begin on the 20th, which is the Saturday from this recording. And what are your thoughts and opinions about this series?
I think, considering the 76ers and the Knicks are playing each other first round, I think it's a pretty even matchup, considering how they've been playing against each other so far this season. I think the Knicks stand a pretty good chance to win that game, but I think it'll still, just the way the game will play, it'll be close.
Agreed. I think that if the Knicks stay hot off of their 5-game win streak, they should dominate. But again, the 76ers are on an 8-game win streak, so they've been hotter than the Knicks at this point. But like you said, they match up evenly, but the thing is that the Knicks still don't have Randall. So that's going to be that's still a huge loss for the Knicks. But we see that the Knicks are competent without Randall, and they can prove that they can win without him. But the thing is that it all depends on the series, because obviously the series matters most to move on to the next round. I personally think that the Knicks win it in 6. With Randall, I think it would have been 5. But what do you think?
No,
The series?
I agree with that. I mean, we've talked before on the pod how the Knicks don't really utilize the team aspect of the way they play. It's very solo player based, which is why when they're missing certain players, you can tell in the way that their games go. So I think for that reason, it goes both ways. On one hand, they have these players that they can utilize. Brunson just won his 9th 40-point game when they played the Bucks. So they have and that's just one of many key players they have. So even if they're missing one, it's not to say they won't do well. But at the same time, they have a tendency to rely too heavily on individual playing and not more strategic playing as a team.
I agree, but also the thing is that I feel like you need Brunson to stay healthy throughout this series, because I feel like without Brunson, it's not as likely that they would win the series. But he's healthy right now, and he just needs to keep on doing what he's doing, honestly. He's been averaging 28.5 points a game throughout the whole season, but I also feel like that needs to carry over into the playoffs. Within this last 12, he's been on fire with 40-point games, 30-point games, even 25-plus games. So the thing is that I feel like that he needs to continue to stay hot. And another person that needs to continue to stay hot, I believe, is Dante DiVincenzo, because he has been a good second option for their team. I feel like he is now, considering Randall's gone down. and deactivated for the rest of the season. So I believe that if he can be a consistent shooter from three, I think that is a key aspect that needs to be kept up. He's been shooting pretty dominantly from that three ball throughout the whole season. And he's also averaging 15.5 points as of right now. But we've seen him be dominant if he is a consistent shooter on numerous occasions. Another person I expect to stay healthy, and honestly, I think if this person goes down that I'm about to say, I think that the Knicks could lose this series, and being OG Anunoby. If Anunoby goes down, the Knicks lose the series. We've seen the Knicks lose games because of Anunoby's absence. I believe with Anunoby, last I checked, which was a few days ago, or I saw a stat a few days ago, they were 20-3 with Anunoby, but without him, it says otherwise. But he brings a defensive aspect to the team while averaging 14 points a game. So he's still a consistent shooter. He knows his role, and that defensive aspect basically runs through him, considering, again, Randall's out for the season. So if he goes down, they lose the series, I feel like. What do you think?
No, I agree. And this goes back to what I was saying, where I think they have a good chance, but it's very contingent on whether or not certain players are at their best. And I think that's why it's less of them being a good team this season and more just like a team that's doing well. You know what I mean? Because in theory, you don't want your success to be lying on the hands of a handful of your players being at their best. You want it to be like everyone is at their best. So considering like all the conditions we just set, I think they stand a good chance. But if any of those fall out and don't end up being there, then I think their chance like decreases proportionately.
I agree. And then also, the thing is that another reason why I said Knicks in 6 is because you can never rule out the 76ers, considering they have Embiid back, and I believe that they're fully healthy at the moment, I want to say. With Embiid healthy, the Sixers are a top 3 team in the East, in my eyes. And I think that we would have saw a better season from the Sixers, depending on Embiid's health. If he was healthy throughout the season, then it would have been otherwise. But he just came back, I believe, within the last month, I would want to say. But they clearly missed his absence when he was down. And I know for a stretch, Maxey was down too, being the starting point guard. And they were both out at the same time, which caused them to be in the play-in tournament. But I feel like since they're both healthy, they're obviously in rhythm right now. They're, like I said before, they're on an 8-game win streak. I think that will carry over into the postseason.
I agree.
What do you think wins the series? We need predictions now. I gave my prediction, so. She always likes to go against me, so don't be shocked if he says Sixers.
Should I just for fun?
The honest thought.
I don't know. I feel like this year it's so conditional. Yeah, I'll say the 76ers. I feel like
In how many games?
5.
All right, so you heard it here first. I have Knicks in 6. She has Sixers in 5. She betrayed New York.
I just want to go again. Gotta keep it interesting.
So
What am I gonna say? Like Knicks in 5?
True.
It's not fun.
Just my point of her going against me.
They have a good chance. I mean, you never know.
Earlier today, one of my friends from one of my group chats sent in a photograph of a stat,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought it was wild, but the way it's lining up, the stars are aligning perfectly for this to be. So in 1994,
Here we go.
we had an earthquake, the eclipse, the O.J. Simpson case, the Knicks and the Rangers both end regular season with 50-plus wins. The Knicks finish second in the East. The Rangers win the President's Trophy with the most wins in franchise history. And the Rangers win the Stanley Cup. Now, fast forward 30 years later, we had an earthquake. We saw the eclipse. O.J. Simpson dies. The Knicks and the Rangers both end their regular season with 50-plus wins. The Knicks finish second in the East again. The Rangers win the President's Trophy with the most wins in franchise history. I don't know. Stars are aligning to something, man.
You wish. There's an earthquake somewhere every
No, this is New York in specific.
New York earthquake. I don't think it's that big of a deal.
I mean, listen, it may not be a big of a deal, but I just find it kind of funny and coincidental that 30 years later, the same things are happening.
Yeah, but it's not cool that it's 30 years later. You know what I mean?
What do you mean?
Because it's like the number 30 is so like.
1994 and 2024.
Yeah, it'd be cooler if it was like 10 years later. 50 years later. 100 years. Like 30. Like. People would be saying the same thing if it was like 15 years later.
I mean, I just find it weird that how it's exactly 30. Like, why couldn't it have been last year instead of this year?
I agree. It's a cool coincidence. What would be more cool, though, is to find other things. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's cool that you found things that already happened that line up. But if this is some, like, so-called connect the dots game, like, are all the dots connected or are there more? You know what I mean?
I mean, as of right now, they kind of are. Also, the thing is that year in 94, the Knicks made it to the finals.
Here we go. This is the only reason he cares. Is because it...
But they ended up losing, though.
Oh!
To the Rockets.
I agree the stars are aligned.
So, but the Rangers won the Stanley Cup, though, that year. So, 30 years later, it's happening again. You know what they say about history? It repeats itself sometimes.
Sometimes? Always.
Yeah.
Always.
So, I don't know. But obviously, the Rockets aren't in the playoffs. But I would like to see a good finals that involves the Knicks. If we do get there. But it's one series at a time, one game at a time, one dribble at a time. So.
Have you been waiting all week to say that?
No, I just came up with that on the spot.
Another thing that happened in 1994.
What happened in 1994?
The Dodgers were in legal trouble. tied to gambling.
Are you being serious?
Yes, I'm being serious. It's in the LA Times.
So in 94, the Dodgers were in legal trouble because of gambling. And then, again, 30 years later, they're back into legal trouble again. Come on. The stars are aligning over here.
Yeah, because in 1994, Darryl Strawberry didn't file his taxes correctly. That was like where it started. And then like from that there were allegations of like, you know, money you're not filing correctly, where is it going towards?
Mm-hmm.
And we're dealing with similar
Situation. But instead of the players' taxes, it's the bookies' taxes.
Mm-hmm.
That is rather interesting. So do you believe it more now?
What, your star aligning thing? I wasn't doubting it. I think you're a little biased because you want the Knicks to win.
No, you had doubts. You always go against me. We know this.
Someone has to be a little bit more critical thinking skills.
Unbelievable.
Maybe. There's a connection. A loose connection.
Listen, where there's smoke, there's fire. No, I truthfully believe that this is the best shot the Knicks had in a while.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's a guarantee.
Oh, me neither. Nothing's guaranteed.
Yeah, and I think the Sixers, unfortunately, might have a better chance than them. That's all.
We shall see, though.
Could be a fan without being delusional.
Oh, I know that.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. Like, I'll criticize a team if they're not doing well, regardless if it's my favorite team or not. I always say be a sports fan first rather than a team fan. If that makes sense.
Well, the game's more enjoyable that way.
No, I know that, but the thing is that so you get to see all sides and all perspectives and biases.
Yeah. And it saves you from looking like an idiot, usually.
Agreed.
Not in your case, usually.
Thanks.
And that is a wrap. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Bearcat Den. Make sure you tune in next week for more. See ya.